Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Society of the Eternal Mile podcast. I'm your host, Noah Sias. On today's episode, we're joined by guitarist David Gantt from Shelby, North Carolina. You may know of his work from his three active bands, Filth, Invoker, and Impale The Betrayer. Follow the show on social media at SOTEM Podcast. Subscribe in whatever platform you listen in. Consider leaving a review if you enjoyed the show. And don't forget about Patreon at patreon.com/SOTEM Podcast. We got a tour announcement. Previous guest Rafe Holmes is on tour with Insurgents and Castaway right now. Their tour started this past Friday and it runs through the 26th. You can see a list of dates on the show's Facebook page or on the Insurgents page. Stop on out to show your support, and don't forget to tell Rafe that you heard him here on the podcast. Lastly, I've gotten a couple inquiries about sponsors for the show recently. I'm still drafting out a sponsorship guide, but if you're interested in becoming one, drop a line over at the show's Facebook page for more information. For listeners potentially worried about having to hear a bunch of random ads for stuff that you're never going to use, don't sweat it. All sponsors for the immediate future will be relevant to the show. So let's get started. My first interaction with David was in the summer of 2015 on the last day of the Vertebroken tour with Bermuda, 2x4, and The Prestige. Tour wrapped up in one of my favorite venues in Texas, Walters Downtown in Houston. The last day of a run is always a bittersweet situation. We had been out for 7 weeks, so we were mentally and physically exhausted, but it also marked the end of doing what we love and having to head back to real life. David was on the Tune Down for What tour with Filth, Invoker, Vessels, and Distinguisher. That package was merged with ours for a very hefty lineup. We didn't have a whole lot of interaction minus the usual, hey, great set, you try to do after a band plays. Again, being the end of tour, you're mentally already on the drive back home, which for us was 18 hours. It wouldn't be until March of 2016 that I would see David again. This time we were on the same tour package. The Macho Man Tour Part 2. Invoker was the opener for the package, and we spent somewhere around 23 days together. We had a lot of laughs and talked a lot of shop on that run. Fast forward to July of 2017, one of David's other bands, Filth, was the opener for the second half of the Are You Afraid of the Gent tour, with Bermuda, Armed for Apocalypse, and Filth. You can check out a short documentary I shot of them over on my company's YouTube channel. I'll leave a link for that over on Facebook. We went into that run as good friends, and we ended the run as anyone would hope for, like family. I had the opportunity to take in Filth in early December on a day off they had in Michigan, so this is my first in-house interview. Here's my conversation with David Gantt. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, when did you first get involved with music?
When I was in high school, I think I was in 10th grade, I got my first guitar and kind of started tinkering around with it, and that's kind of what led to what is now today, you know.
Sure. Who were some of your early influences?
Definitely Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit, Tom Morello from Rage, of course, Dimebag Darrell, Mark Morton from Lamb of God. Those few are probably the most four prominent ones.
Before we get talking about your bands, I wanted to know if you've heard this before. So, in regards to your bands, people don't have an exact genre for them. Mm-hmm. It's kind of its own genre where people call it like a Gantt band.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
It's so crazy because of course, each one of the bands have a familiar sound.
Right, yeah. They're kind of
but it's a Gantt band.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the referencing joke.
Let's talk about Invoker. When did that get started?
Invoker come about in late 2012, 2013 I guess when it initially really kind of came to fruition, I guess if you want to say. Basically, Impale had been around for several more years prior to that, and it was kind of dwindling down. It was having its ups and downs and stuff like that. and I just kind of wanted to start what to me at the time would be a super band in our scene. I was just kind of going to shows and watching bands, and I picked out a few different people from bands. I thought, man, these guys are really killing it. I want to see if they would be interested in doing a somewhat super local group kind of thing, and that's how I run across Dustin and a lot of the former members, Tilly of course and stuff. And I hit the studio, wrote a few songs, brought Dustin and John, the old other original vocalist of Invoker, in and tracked some vocals and stuff, and just kind of built it from that way.
What was the driving force to have two vocalists?
I think I just wanted. Nobody in our scene was doing two vocalists, and I was just like, you know what? Both these guys are killing it. Both of them are in not great bands, but I want to see what their actual real potential is. So let's grab them up and see what they can do together. I mean, there was really not a whole lot of thought process to it. Just, hey, I want to try two really good vocalists and see what happens.
So the band has two releases: 2014's Death is Inevitable.
Yep.
And 2017's Resist.
Those are the two main releases. We did have a 3-song EP we dropped in 2016 called Devolve. It was just kind of just to put out a couple extra songs, because it had been a while, and we just wanted to drop, some stuff that was showing the progression of the band, not an actual EP or anything. It was just a couple songs.
So I want to talk about Resist. Mm-hmm. That was a very bold move for you guys.
Yeah.
Very, very bold. And I got to tell you, you guys killed it.
Thank you.
I listen to that so much, like you have no idea.
That's awesome.
I probably listen to that record at least once a week.
That's awesome. Thank you.
There's just, it's not that your first release sucked or anything. There's just something very Gantt band about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just super sick, and you took a lot of risks, bringing in more dynamic range, so to speak, by having clean guitar, ambient stuff, and the biggest, oh my God, this is happening, clean vocals.
Yeah.
And, a lot of bands will try to do that, and it comes off like, okay, you just did that to do that. But I feel like it was very well placed and very well thought out. So, great record, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So let's talk about the writing process for that.
Okay.
What was the influence for the record?
Basically, it was, I had been writing a lot of really heavy stuff, and I was like, you know what? I haven't wrote anything that was, I guess, of the style that actually got me really into playing guitar. So it was Wes Borland and stuff like that, Corny,
sure.
Monkey and Head. So I was like, you know what? I kind of want to bring back some of the things that really got me into it. Hey, you know what? We've got a new lineup. There's a new vocalist. We haven't put out anything in a while. Let's just try something a little different. So we sat down with Greg from Chopwater Studios and just kind of started mapping things out and seeing how we felt and stuff. And it come along well, and it definitely, for me, took back to when I was much younger and what I took in and how much I enjoyed of those kinds of styles of music. And then Dustin and Zared are both, big into the politics and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say this one's definitely politically based.
Yeah, it's very, very politically based. There was a lot of there's a lot of issues going on right now in the world, and both of them have very strong opinions, and they wanted to voice those opinions. So
sure. We
were like, this was their creative outlet for that.
How's the response to the record been?
It's done pretty well, actually. Yeah, it's I'm happy with it. Very happy with it.
Nice. So what's in store for Invoker for 2018?
We will be hitting the studio in the summer to start the full length. It'll be our second LP.
Nice.
So, and then of course we're gonna hit the road a couple times, but mostly just writing new music and getting the new album out.
Changing gears, let's talk about Filth.
Okay.
Definitely a different vibe.
Yeah. Much
so
different.
How did that get started?
Me and Dustin were on tour riding down the road one day. Actually, it was night, and we were just kind of having some pretty deep conversations and stuff, about life in general. Everybody, the things that you go through, people dealing with depression and anxiety and suicide and all that stuff. And it was just like, hey man, you know what? We've been rocking Invoker for a while. I want another creative outlet. You want to go just write the darkest, scariest, most real thing we possibly can write, just be stupid heavy. And he was like, absolutely. And that's just kind of how it came about. The name, of course, fitting with the style, we were just let's go with the grossest thing possible.
So you guys have 2 releases for that, 2015's Tales from the Gutter.
Yep.
And 2017's God Has a Plan. Mm-hmm. Tales from the Gutter has a crazy cult following.
Yeah,
it's very interesting, and I find a lot of subgenre guttural and pig screams and all that kind of stuff talking about Dustin.
Yeah.
And using him as a benchmark.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. Did you ever imagine that happening?
No, and neither did he.
That's awesome. And again, there's so many familiar elements to it, but it's still it's on its own. Now that said, God Has a Plan is also a huge step forward, in my opinion, from your previous release, just like the Invoker one was a natural step. And man, that one gets there. It's very dark, and it's just filth.
Yeah.
It's the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
So what was the influence for God Has a Plan?
We wanted to try to not be quite as generic as Tales from the Gutter, so it was we dug a little deeper, got a little more creative in the writing and stuff like that. But for Dustin, it was just the biggest influence was a lot of things he was going through in life at that point in time. The ups and downs of being on the road, not being at home, being broke all the time. The lack of eating, relationships are crazy difficult. Mm-hmm. They say that being a touring musician is the hardest thing on an individual's mood swings, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And it definitely is. And he basically just poured everything out that he was physically going through and feeling that time onto that album. And the name kind of comes from the whole situation where, a lot of people say, oh, well, it's God's plan. God has a plan for everything. Well, we don't necessarily believe that. So me personally, I feel that if there was such, this amazing, graceful God, why would he allow people to suffer and deal with the things that they have to deal with? Why is that part of his plan?
Sure.
So that entails the name God Has a Plan.
So what was the influence for the album art? Because it's definitely a statement.
Yeah, it was hey, was this part of God's big plan for you to hang yourself and be done with life because it was that bad that you couldn't stand to live another day on it, that you had to kill yourself? Was that his actual plan for you? Because if so, that's bullshit. That's where that comes from.
So you had 2 very heavy hitters for guest spots on it.
Yeah, Adam Warren and Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder.
How'd you manage to get those?
Adam Warren, Oceano had come through a couple times, and Dustin and Adam would, chatted up at the shows and stuff, and we just, reached out to him. Hey man, would you be willing to do it? He said absolutely. Trevor from the Black Dahlia was a little funnier. They come to Ground Zero, and Filth opened up for them. And after the show, we were hanging out at the bar. Everybody had a few beers, and they were passing around a big fat blunt. And everybody was nice and stoned. And Dustin was like, "Hey man, would you ever be willing to do a guest spot?" And he was like, "Oh, I'd love to, man. Let's do it."
Nice.
I was like, "Okay, sick." So we sent him the song. We'd actually just finished up recording everything in the studio at a week prior to that show, so we were able to send him the song, and he knocked it out immediately after he got home from tour. Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how's the response been to the record?
God Has a Plan has had a really good response. Tales from the Gutter did great for what it was. I was surprised, but God Has a Plan has done twice as good as that.
Interesting.
So I feel like overall both have done well, and I'm happy for just being something that we were just going to start as a side project, as another outlet, to write music and to allow Dustin to express his feelings and stuff like that. Both have kind of took off much stronger than we thought they would.
Sure. Any plans for 2018?
Yes, we are, currently on tour right now with Machinists and Criminals. We have 10 days left on this tour. The Breakdown Before Christmas tour. We'll be heading back home, and in early January, we are finishing up writing for our first full-length album.
Nice.
So we're 3 or 4 songs deep right now. Dustin's constantly writing, I've been writing and stuff like that, so we're going to start putting everything together and forming the actual full-length album. We'll, do a lot of promotion for that, release it, and then hit the road hard again.
Finally, let's talk about the lesser-known project, probably for the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Impale The Betrayer, and that actually is your furthest one back, correct?
Right, yeah. It was,
so go ahead and tell us about that.
Impale The Betrayer, I've been out of high school for a couple years. I've been in and out of some bands and stuff, and nothing that I was really enjoying. So me and some friends back in the day decided, to write the heaviest stuff we could at that time. It was like 2009, I think, 2008, 2009. So it's been some years. That band has been around for a while. It's seen countless members. I'm the only original left. At one time, Justin, who was also a part of Invoker, had been in Impale The Betrayer with me for years, and that kind of led to him being an Invoker and stuff like that. But he stepped down. He was ready to, get a career and stuff like that. But that man, I don't ever want to see it go away. But it's something that we still do for fun here and there. We might play a show once or twice a year, nothing big. But it's just kind of the original that started me into the world of heavy that I'm in now.
Sure. And you have 3 releases with Impale The Betrayer, correct?
Yeah.
And you just put one out for 2017, and
Yep.
that was Infernal?
Yep, that's it.
And there was quite a bit of time in between the previous release and that one.
Yeah, there was probably 4 years or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it had been a while. The band kind of went on a hiatus for a while, and I'd had some old stuff that I had wrote that never got used, and I was like, man, I still really like these songs. Justin had quit, and I was just kind of sitting on the songs, and I was like, hey, Dustin, like, I know you love this style. You want to throw some vocals on this stuff, so that's kind of how Infernal come about. It's like, hey, man, let's do it and see what happens.
Sure. How's the response been to that?
It's been good. It's a small response, because the band obviously isn't like,
Yeah.
Our main focus or anything. But the fans that we had from, back in the day are still following us, and they like it a lot, So it's done well for being, just kind of put together and put out, no real promotion or release for it,
Any plans for 2018?
Offhand, no, nothing at the moment. A couple shows, that's really about it. I still write the stuff, here and there, but nothing serious.
It's probably a means of like winding down when the 2 big ones kind of, need a break.
Yeah. And I love to write, so I'm constantly writing all the time. It's just one of those things, like I'll write for it here and there when I have some spare time and I'm not focusing on Filth or Invoker.
All right, so let's switch it over to some gear talk. What's your signal chain looking like these days?
My main pedal is my AMT P2 preamp pedal, and I love that thing. It just creates my entire tone for my board. Just basically running a Boss NS2 and the AMT P2 through the effects and send in the back, and out front I've got a decimator, a whammy pedal, a super shifter, and just a Boss tuner. Pretty simple setup. I like it though.
Sure. What guitars are you running?
Right now, for both Filth and Invoker, I am running a Schecter Blackjack 8-string for Filth and a Schecter Blackjack 7-string for Invoker.
Any items on the wish list?
Yes, I have had my eye on that Josh Travis 8-string for a while, that Signature. That is probably going to be my next guitar that I pick up.
So let's have a discussion about the Eternal Mile. When was your first tour, and what was the lineup?
Oh man, my very first tour ever was Impale The Betrayer, Dilly Plaza, and The Kingdom Fell. It was back in both Dilly Plaza and The Kingdom Fell were from Florida. We did like 6 days on their like 15-day East Coast run. That was probably in 2013, maybe 2014. Dilly hadn't been around very long, and they were still young, just hitting the road. At that point, one of their bass player, it was their guitar player Dave, was talking to me. It was actually he was talking to me because he was going back home to get ready to start playing bass for Traders. So that's how long it's been ago. It's been 4 or 5 years ago, probably.
Would you call that run a good, bad, or neutral experience?
It was probably a neutral, a very learning experience for us. We went into it had just been playing a bunch of local shows here and there. Really had no idea what we were doing.
If you had to guess, how many shows have you done to date?
Oh man, well over. I would say I'm closing in on 1,000.
Okay.
I would say.
And I can vouch for that. Because I've done some looking, and I always try to look at guests and see, like, okay, how many tours have they done? Obviously, there's going to be stuff that I haven't seen before.
Right, of course, yeah.
But I figured it was up there for you, because you guys are constantly on the road.
Yeah, sometimes we're on the road too much, it feels.
Do you have any particular markets that you enjoy playing in?
I love all across Texas. Texas is insane. Denver, Colorado is amazing. Even some of the smaller markets, like we played Kalamazoo last night, it was cool. Joplin, Missouri is fun, and I love going out west. There's a lot of fun places to play in California and stuff. So I would say, those are probably my favorite ones. But I mean, even like the small ones like Mississippi and stuff, like Hattiesburg, God, those shows are awesome. Mm-hmm. 70, 80 kids in a little bitty bar just having a great time.
Yeah. How about favorite venues?
Well, our hometown venue, Ground Zero, is still one of my favorites just because I've been going there since I was 15 years old. I've seen shows there for years. Come and Take It in Austin has definitely become one of my favorites.
That is a very common theme for this question on this show. So it's interesting that, and it hasn't even been around for that long.
No,
which is crazy. So they're doing good work out there,
and they take care of you out there. You feel at home when you're with them. The Marquee in Denver, love that venue. Had great experiences there. Mm-hmm. The Ritz in Detroit is an awesome venue. I've had good experiences there. There's a bunch all over the U.S. that I really enjoy. Those are a few that just stand out, though, that when I go back, I know it's going to be a good time every time.
For sure. How about favorite city to have a day off in?
Well, I guess that depends on the mood I'm in. Las Vegas is very fun to have an off day in. Austin's cool, too, though, because anytime we're in Austin, even if we have an off day, you can still find a show. 6th Street is constantly music all the time. It's amazing. So I enjoy being there.
What would you consider to be the biggest rookie mistake being on tour?
There are a lot. Being late to load in is crazy aggravating. Not only that, probably I would say getting your gear on and off stage in a timely manner. Breaking your drums down on the riser. Those things.
For sure.
And not coming with any money with you. That's a big rookie mistake. Always be prepared and have some extra backup cash.
Absolutely. How about top 3 must-have tour items?
Number 1, baby wipes.
Baby wipes. That is the number 1 answer.
Got to have those suckers. Extra cash in your pocket because you never know what's going to happen. And honestly, that's a tough one between, I would say, toothbrush and plenty of clean underwear and socks. You got to have plenty of those because baby wipes, clean underwear, and socks go hand in hand. You don't want to smell like death all the time in front of people.
Right. What's a trend going on in music right now that you'd like to see fade away?
I would like to see the whole I'm too cool to watch all the bands fade away thing. I would like to see that fade away. I hate that. Just the other night we were in Wisconsin. The local band that played right before the package, the vocals is like, everybody stick around for the show. You got to support all your bands. You got to support everybody. We're tired of seeing shows that have low attendance for touring bands. As soon as they got off stage, they packed up and left, literally. And it's just like, dude, like that's something I want to see go away. I mean, on a local and a touring level, people that come to shows, they spend money and they're too cool to hang out inside and watch all the bands. They're gonna stand outside and smoke, or they're gonna show up and leave 2 bands in. Like, well, why'd you waste your time? I'd like to see that go away and it go back to the early, 2000s, when people would come out and stay the whole time, and you could pack a local show out easily, 200, 300 kids, because everybody just wanted to have a good time and be friends.
So Kevin Lyman recently announced that Warped Tour is done in 2018. Mm-hmm. When asked why, he said that over the last couple years, the target demographic of 14 to 17-year-olds disappeared. And as a result, he feels that it's not viable to continue doing it as the demographic has changed and it's getting older instead of staying the same.
Right.
So 2 questions out of that. What are your thoughts about Warped Tour being done? And what do you think about the demographic changing? At that grander scale with Warped Tour, does that have any sort of influence on where we're all at?
I hate to see Warped Tour go. I feel like it gave everybody a chance to see a wide variety of bands every year. I hate to see that it's dwindling away because of lack of attendance and demographic changing and stuff like that. I hate to see any of these fests and these big tours, these summer tours going away. I mean, it's a lot of exposure for a lot of people, hard-working touring bands and stuff. And it sucks to see things like that happen.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm getting at. As far as the demographic changing, I guess that's just, one of those things. Kids get older, it becomes less cool to like this kind of music for a lot of people. It's people, which sucks. A lot of people get into it because it's the cool thing at the moment. They get older and they realize, I don't really like this anymore. I'm not going to go to shows and stuff like that anymore. And that kind of leaves us of the older dudes that are still doing it and still loving it, kind of going, are they, are our diehards going to stick around? Are we going to be able to build more younger, newer fan bases and stuff like that? It's, I don't know, not being on a very big scale level, it's kind of difficult to know exactly what that's going to do for your band.
It's definitely put us in a different situation and an interesting situation because we were a generation that grew up with the creation of the technology that kids today take for granted.
Yeah.
I graduated from high school in 2007, and that was the first year of the iPhone.
Yeah.
And I totally remember having my crappy Virgin Mobile prepaid phone.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like I kind of forget that, oh, hey, I used to not have this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think now people have short attention spans. It's very much I want it now. I don't want to pay a whole lot of money for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't like it, I want to be able to get immediately out of it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's why you're seeing a lot of bands going to Patreon and, kind of finding their audience and treating themselves like a subscription service.
Yeah.
Some people pay for Spotify or Apple Music, Netflix. What makes it different? On top of that, I think you're also seeing a rise in YouTube people, YouTube artists, because that's exactly the problem that we're talking about. Then I wouldn't consider YouTube to be a problem.
No.
But it's the audience's problem for not coming out to shows, not supporting bands.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
because now everything's at hands now. You don't have to go to a show to see a band because somebody's filming it with their phone or something like that. There's a live video. You can find it anywhere and see anybody you want.
Yeah.
Which, is cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. If someone records our set, I have no problem with that.
No, not at all. I love it.
But I can also understand how some people would get a little upset about that.
Right.
So,
well, I feel like Facebook Live and Facebook, any kind of videos that go on Facebook, has slightly hurt music in general, especially the live aspect. Don't get me wrong, it's super cool. I love when people are live streaming their sets and stuff, and you can watch it back and things like that. But once again, it takes away from people actually going physically out to a show, picking up merch, and hanging out and having a good time.
right.
It also, in my opinion, slightly hurts bands releasing music videos on YouTube now. I don't know I just feel like over the past couple of years, I have seen a drop in, overall views for when, let's just say Oceano drops a new music video for, Revelations or whatever. When they, you look back and you think, man, 10 years ago they got over 1 million views on a video. Now, 300,000.
Right.
It's like, what's happened? It's people have gotten even lazier with their phones, and they don't even want to click on a link to go to YouTube sometimes and spend 3 minutes watching a video. If it's not a 15-second clip, they don't care.
Right.
So that's just kind of how I see it. I everything going digital and everything being available with your phones is awesome. I love it, but it has made us all lazy.
So we're going to change it up. Let's talk about some of the less glamorous moments in your career. How about horror stories from the stage?
No, there's nothing worse than being on stage and getting ready to play in front of a good sized crowd, and all of a sudden nothing in your chain's working and you can't figure out what's wrong, and you're moving everything around, pulling cables out, fumbling around, wasting 5 minutes to realize, oh, this 1/4 inch just wasn't plugged in all the way.
Or my favorite, hey, dumbass, turn your volume knob up.
Yes. Oh, definitely been there before. Oh, one of the worst times ever for us though. The weather was really cold. We'd been on the road for several days. I think we were in Amarillo, Texas, and Dustin has asthma. Mm-hmm. His inhaler had ran out, and he has a breathing machine, but something had broke on it while we were traveling that day, and he couldn't get it to work. And we were on stage 3 songs in, and he had an asthma attack right there, and it was like he had to get off stage, and they had to rush him to the hospital.
That's miserable.
Yeah, it sucked. You know, I felt bad for him. He was embarrassed. You know, we still finished our set because luckily at that time we were Invoker. You know, and we had 2 vocalists. We were able to finish and stuff. But he was upset. You know, because we were playing with Fit for an Autopsy that night. You know, we were direct support for him, and it was just like we were trying to, just trying to be as professional and look good as possible.
Sure.
But health issues come about, and you can't help that.
Right.
You know.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah.
How about the worst promoter or overall show situation you've been in?
Oh, man.
And I know that one's very hard to pick one.
Yeah, that one is difficult. Recently, I could definitely think of one recently would be with Invoker. We were on tour with Falsifier, Rain, and Alter Perceptions in September. It was Falsifier CD release tour. We played the Rail 2, which I love the Rail 2. Cool venue. The staff's awesome. The promoter for that night went into... He took on the show and agreed to something that he shouldn't have agreed to. He didn't have his locals do any pre-sales. He didn't have an event page up until a week before the show. There was no flyer. So, of course, we got there and we were all kind of skeptical. And he comes up a couple hours in the show and hands us $200 of the $600 guarantee he owes and starts making up tons of excuses. And we're like, hey man, we're trying to be cool about this. You signed a contract. You agreed to this. Please hold your end of the deal up. And he got scared and while we weren't looking, jumped in his car and bailed out. Throwing rocks, hitting people in the parking lot with rocks. I mean, just didn't even look when he hit the street. Just right on out in the road. I mean, he could have easily pulled out in front of a car or something like that. So that was a pretty rough night.
That sucks. And if I recall correctly, I could be wrong on this. How recent was this?
September.
Okay. Yep. So I totally remember because I shared the post.
Yeah.
And I was one of many who went on this dude's production page and left awful reviews.
Oh, yeah.
Awful reviews. And as I said in my review, you picked the worst bands to, screw over because, these are people at a lot of different levels, bigger than you, who respect you.
Yeah.
And when these higher-ups know that, that's it.
Yeah.
Call it a day.
Your career in promoting is done.
You are done. Become a ghost.
Yeah. Don't even go to shows. You have hurt yourself. And it sucks to see that, but a lot of people get excited, and I understand. Hey, you want to book your favorite bands? That's cool. I definitely get that. I want to do the same thing, but you can't go into it, unprepared.
No, you have an obligation.
Yeah. I mean, we're out here traveling hours upon hours, no sleep. I mean, all we want to do is show up, play a good show, get what we were told we were going to get, and hit the next place,
Exactly.
We're doing our job. You have to do your job.
Lastly, how about the most random thing to happen either on tour or at a show?
Well, we've had a couple weird moments, driving throughout New Mexico and Nevada and stuff, late at night, leaving out and driving, and of course we're slightly weary from the road, but so this is a pretty cool story. We played what is this? We played in Roswell, New Mexico. we're leaving and heading towards Vegas. We've been driving like an hour and a half. This was Filth. Me and Dustin and our old bass player, Nate, were all still up. We were just chatting and carrying on and stuff like that. Off in the distance, we start seeing this like weird, like blue light expand and go across the road and come back. And it would do it like every 4 seconds. And as we got closer, it continued to do it. I mean, it was, you know, it was big. Like,
right.
We were just like, what is going on out there? And as the closer we get, the brighter it gets. And then as we get within, I would say, 30 yards of where it felt like it was coming from, it stopped. And so I drove, you know, an extra 30, 40 yards, and I got out. I was just curious, you know, and I got out and I was looking around and I didn't see anything. And I mean, you know, it was dark, but yet the moon was still bright enough to where you could see in the desert for miles. You know? It was just like,
what the hell just happened?
What the hell was this?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we just played Roswell. Did we experience some sort of like alien phenomenon right now?
Cue the X-Files music.
Yeah, like what the hell? Where's Mulder at? But yeah, that was a cool experience. Some of my favorite experiences on tour, just, you know, little random things that happen like that. But also, like, just, I enjoy when I'm playing a show, or when we show up to a venue and we see somebody that we've seen 2 nights ago, or, you know, the night before, you know, kids are just like, hey man, like, we just wanted to travel and see 3 or 4 shows since they were within a couple hours of each other. It's like, man, that is awesome. Like, thank you. Some people won't even drive 20 minutes to a show.
Right. Or my favorite, hey, come to Austin. We're in Austin right now. Where the hell are you at?
Like, we are here, dog.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's the worst when you announce the tour, put the route up, and everybody's just like, "Hey, why aren't you playing here? Why aren't you playing here?" It's like, we were just there a month ago,
right?
Or we were here a couple months ago, or we're coming. Like,
pay attention.
Yeah, like follow our page if you want to see us. Please follow our page and just look for the announcements and stuff, because we're gonna hit those areas. You know,
right?
We just can't do it every single tour.
So I'm curious to hear what advice you'd have to a few different groups of people, and let's start with local bands first. Not necessarily local to your area, but just in general.
Local bands, my biggest thing for that is spend a lot of time with your band perfecting your craft. Like, write the music you want to write and spend time practicing over and over and over with each other to get it really good and tight. If you want to stand out in your local scene, you have to go up there and really show them that you care. I mean, that's how any band that's doing anything come along. You know, they got up there and did their damn thing and showed people, hey, you know what, this is what we love to do. Also, if you're playing shows, hustle, put flyers out, sell tickets, invite all your friends, you know, anything you possibly can to put bodies in front of you. You want people watching you. You want to impress venue owners and promoters. That's the best way to continue to get on bigger shows and do more and more.
Sure. How about promoters?
Promoters, oh man.
As Jay from No Suffer and Triumph Over Shipwreck has been famously quoted for, do your fucking job.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. If you take on a show, know that you have an obligation. If you say, yes, I will pay these bands and sign a contract agreement, you're going to pay that guarantee. Pay that guarantee. Make locals, sell pre-sales, put an event page up, hustle your ass off, do it the old school way, and put flyers up everywhere. If you got young friends, tell them to take them to their high schools and put them up in there. Do your damn job. It's that simple.
Exactly.
If you agree to it, do it.
And lastly, how about bands hitting the road for the first time?
Always be on time. I know things happen, but try your best to always be on time, if not early. On and off stage as quick as possible. You do not want your headliners or anybody after you waiting on you forever to break your damn drums down on stage or roll all your chords up and lollygag getting off stage. On and off as fast as possible. Be professional. Talk to your TM, talk to the headlining band, and ask them what you can do to help them in any way possible. Be prepared and go into it open and ready to learn, because you don't know shit until you get out there and do it.
Absolutely. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to plug?
If you enjoy any of my bands, please, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you know, anything. If you enjoy the music, please check us out. Check out our merch stores, you know, and help spread the word.
David, thank you so much for being on the show. Absolutely
you,
appreciate you coming out here and doing this, and best of luck moving forward in 2018.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul.
That concludes this episode. I'd like to thank David for being on the show. Check out Filth, Invoker, and Impale The Betrayer's discographies. Also, don't forget about that Insurgents Castaway tour happening right now through the 26th. I've been your host, Noah Sias, and as always, thank you for listening.